Welcome back to X Squared Radio, final hour. My guest host tonight is Suzanne Ross. She is the organizer of the Beyond the Matrix Expo, which is going to take place March 19th and 20th, and some great deals. You can live stream it at home. You don't have to travel. You don't have to get a hotel. You don't have to be with us. I know what a burden that would be. You can live stream it for $77 both days. All you have to do is go to x2radio.com, x2-radio.com, click on the events button on the left-hand side, and hit the register button. It's right there. That choice is right there. Of course, it would be great if you could be with us because we're going to be doing some pretty cool stuff. One of the great guests that's going to be there is Geraldine Orozco, and she's my guest tonight, and she is just... Well, we're going to need another 5-hour program with her. I can just tell you that right now. The vistas just keep opening and opening and opening. One of the things that mathematicians talk about often in their biographies, not their autobiographies, but they speak about breakthroughs in mathematics. I know that doesn't sound like a novel you would want to read, but trust me, it's quite interesting because all of these world great mathematicians that changed the way we think about mathematics. Riemann, Chandrasekhar. I mean, all these great mathematicians that taught us about multidimensional mathematics, whole math, not derived math, but whole new mathematics. They got their information from dreams. They got their information from visions that they had. And it's the same thing in engineering. After you study everything you can, and well, after the crying, then there's the vision, then there's the breakthrough, there's the thing that you receive when you stick your hand out there in the maelstrom of all potentialities, the potential of all potentialities. You grab onto something and you pull it back to the past and hold it in your hands in this dimension. It is a breakthrough. That's your soul, your mind connecting with your higher self or another source that has that advanced information that's handing it back to you. So the question that I asked Geraldine, and I want to get her to answer in this segment if we can, it may take longer than that, I'm just saying, is this multi-dimensional connection, this energetic connection that we make, is it constant? Is it fleeting? Is it only when the stars are lined up right, or when the moon or the Mars or whatever it is, how it astrologically affects deep space connections? Or is this something that's subspace? Is it something we can be connected to at will?
Yes, and I do believe that we are moving in and out of this information constantly, here and now. I guess, as I was mentioning before, the only thing that keeps our attention in the now is our ability to be present and conscious in this moment. But you see, the mind is so complex, Brooks. I mean, our subconscious mind, is running programs in the back end that, without being conscious of them, they are the ones that are actually really creating our reality in the here and now. And so that's something that we really need to start understanding. Maybe the understanding has to be focused on how we create, how we manifest, how we project ourselves in our physical world, in our everyday lives. All of that matters. All of that is tied and linked to this concept of moving on more than one physical dimension. And so we are moving in and out of these dimensions constantly. So, and in dream time, as you were mentioning, how can we become, aware? How can we learn to navigate on those realms, as you were asking earlier? And my answer to that is that, as someone that works very heavily in those realms in training myself, personally, I can tell you that how I began to have access to that is by becoming aware and training myself in this moment, in this present waking moment. And it was questioning my emotions, questioning every thought that came into my mind, where those thoughts came from. So all of that kind of dialogue with ourselves, within ourselves, is imperative to understanding the function of your body. And to anyone that experiences that level of inquiry with themselves, they will find, because we are all individual beings, we all have different perceptions. However, the architecture of the body is quite the same for most of us. Some of us may have maybe more activated strands of DNA. Others of us may have more deactivated strands of DNA, but we are all functioning through the same filtration system and processes. And so that allows us to kind of level out how we are healing, how we are interacting with multiple dimensions.
Well, it still sounds like the navigation is a little bit sometimes under our control and sometimes not under our control. You mentioned that we pass through these dimensions. Is it something that occurs more likely at certain hours of the day or certain times of the month?
No. Thank you for asking that. I feel we are moving. You see, we want to have this idea that time is linear again, that we have the past, the future, we have, a certain time and day. And even though our reality may be influenced by our environment, whether that's external influences of our society or maybe astrological influences, none of that has to affect you navigating any of those dimensions. And so the level of control that I'm suggesting that we have is the ability to navigate those dimensions at any time, here and now. It's a matter of coming into consciousness of, how to become aware of yourself. If you become conscious in this present moment, here, me and you, all our listeners, if they practice being 100% in the present moment right now, a lot of information will become, you will become aware of a lot more information than you may have previously when you were not conscious of this moment. And so when you start having dialogue with the information that you're receiving, then, your ability to access different dimensions of information are going to become present for you, because now you are paying attention to the different aspects of yourself within different environments. If you are sitting here and you're daydreaming about something, an aspect of yourself is living through that other dimension, because you are projecting that reality on another dimension. It's not a physical dimension. It's another dimension that is not yet created, or maybe in the past, or maybe in the future. But your ability to become aware and conscious of that interaction with your thoughts is what creates and what links you to any number of dimensions. Now, in dream time, it sounds like something that's very difficult to navigate. But again, as I'm saying, the more we train ourselves to become aware of this present moment, how we are processing, how we are feeling, how the multidimensional body is working in this physical realm, this 3D, we then can train the body to become aware on other planes, as in dream time. And dream time is, again, you are navigating multiple dimensions. And if we continue to be unconscious, things like, for example, ET contact, maybe of a lower frequency or whatnot, I don't want to simplify that, because even contact and experiences outside the body, such as ET contact, can be perceived by human on a range of higher or lower frequency based on how we perceive certain experiences. However, our ability to become conscious, even in those experiences, out of body or in the body, are a choice in a way. They are a conscious choice that we have the ability of making.
Right, right. I mean, I get this, and I'm thinking of something that has occurred to me several times when I've really been straining for something, really, wanted the answer, and I want it right now. It doesn't come right then. It, in fact, as long as I'm holding on to it, it won't come. It's like I have to let it go, like I have to release a little bit, and sort of like, I don't know, let the bird go out of my hands for a moment to let it fly around and come back with the answer. But like you also said, you have to stay conscious that you put that out there and that it is going to come back at some time, maybe a second, maybe an hour, maybe a day or a week. So you've got to be conscious that that energy is going to come back, and you've got to be listening, because if you're unconscious or you're not conscious that you're conscious, that idea is going to come back and it's going to go right through your head and never register, because you're not going to resonate with it. But I really have discovered in my time on this world anyway, that the release is a very important step. Don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. The release is very important, and but are you referring to just being in the flow of things? Is that what you mean?
Well, sort of. I mean, you need a breakthrough, and you don't really know what it is that you need. Like, for instance, you know, uh, I'll give you a perfect example. We had gone
Mm-hmm.
through all of the designs for rear spindles for my truck that existed. Every one that had ever been built in a vehicle, I had bought it, a used one, and tried to adapt it to the truck. Well, it wasn't strong enough. It wouldn't do what we wanted it to do. We realized customers would break it. So I had to design a new one. So I'm sitting there at my design station, and I designed this rear spindle that has all the features that we want. It's strong enough, it has a big enough bearing, it can attach to a lower control arm that can stand up in a truck. We're not building a car here, we're building a truck. So I get it done. My son's looking over my shoulder. He said, "Dad, that looks pretty good, but I think we're going to need a machinist." I said, "Yeah, I think you're right, because I don't really know how to put this and this together. I mean, I see it on my screen, but I don't really know how to do it out of steel." That instant, while we're sitting there at 7 o'clock at night, it's dark outside, in my office looking at the screen, my phone rings. My phone rings. And one of my friends, who is a machinist, a master machinist, I hadn't spoken to him in 2 years. He says, "Brooks, it's Greg. I'm outside the gate. Let me in." I went and opened up the gate. He came up and looked at the drawing and said, "Yeah, I can build that." I needed a machinist at that exact moment, but he wasn't transported at that moment. He lived half an hour away. Some hours before that, maybe even days before that, he made his mind up. He was going to drive to our compound, sit outside the fence, and call me on the phone and be let in. He could see the office light was on. That's how amazing the universe sets things up.
Absolutely, yes. And so, what you're talking about here is manifesting things and co-creating things, and how we are projecting into this reality. And that's a beautiful example. And from that perspective, yes, it is important to be in this unison, in this co-creation with our reality. But as you mentioned, the key word in your experience is that you were very open, and in this state of neutrality, in which allowed all possibilities to become available to you. And so when we come into that neutrality, into that center point, we then come into alignment with all of these possibilities, in which you are now deciding how you want your experience to communicate with you, or how to interact with you. So that's a very beautiful experience, and it's important that we understand how to live in that present moment, in that state of neutrality, in order to allow things to communicate with us. If we hold on to things, as you were mentioning earlier, we are deciding then in that moment, from that very limited perspective, how we want to receive or interact with our experiences. And so that may be a very limited way of interacting with your life. You could go beyond that. You never know. There could be possibilities that are much further and much greater for you. So ultimately, for the human to come into a higher state of being and creating, coming into the state of neutrality allows you to be open to any possibility, and therefore coming out of that struggle state or that state of survival mode, now flowing with your life. So yeah, that's a wonderful, wonderful example and very important to note.
Well, I'm not saying that I knew how to navigate that. I could just tell you that over the years I've practiced manifestation in the real world, and I don't mean sitting around manifesting, a lottery win, something, crazy like that. But I mean, I need a piece. I need a piece of technology, or I need to meet somebody, or I need to have an opportunity pop up. This is how it's done, and I think what we're seeing with this neural network we call the internet is we're beginning to facilitate that in the real world. And here's what I mean. You may be sitting at home trying to build your own home business, or you may have a business and you want more sales leads, or you want more customers, or you want a different supplier to contact you, or an investor to contact you. And so you're creating channels for that to happen. You're using social media, you're using a website, you're putting ads out there. Every single thing that you create, that you put out there, you don't really know where it's going to go. You don't really know who's going to look at it, or if anybody's going to look at it. But you're putting it out there in this neural network, let's call it a universe, that's the internet. And then you're waiting for that contact to come back. And if it doesn't come back, then you alter it or change it. And I think that this kind of interdimensional communication is the same way. We're putting ideas out. We're putting dreams out there. We're putting desires out there. I want to meet the love of my life. I want to know what is the best occupation I can choose, that I'll be the most fulfilled and be able to feel the most purposeful. You don't really know the answer. You're waiting for the answer, but you got to put out in the universe a receiver to be able to pick up that signal. Am I getting pretty close here?
You're absolutely right. Yes, and that's kind of how we must learn how to utilize this. And what makes humans so interesting is that ability to communicate. And just as you were mentioning earlier, that way of connecting with those, other possibilities and all those things. That is exactly how we must learn to communicate and send out that information out and see how it comes back to us. So I agree 100%. That's great.
Well, I can't wait to see your presentation at Sedona, because I think I didn't get a chance to meet you when we were at the Stargate to the Cosmos, because I was presenting as well. So we were in different rooms presenting different things, and we saw different audiences, but I didn't get a chance to see your presentation. But I am going to make it a point to see your presentation at Sedona, because I think that there are individual workers in this space, and they may do it a little bit differently. They may think about it a little a different process, but there aren't that many out in the public eye. There aren't many people that have written and worked in this space and put their ideas in the crucible of scrutiny outside the cloister, let's call it, like you have. And so I greatly respect your work, and I appreciate you coming on the program tonight. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about or touched on that you particularly want to make a point about in this space of DNA, of activating that DNA, of the DNA being a great receiver, of connecting with your higher self, and maybe categorizing things from the highest frequencies to the lowest frequencies in as much as we've talked about it tonight? Is there something else you want to add to this?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I think we covered a lot of things. I mean, Brooks, there is so much to talk about, and I mean, I think we barely touched kind of like the tip of the iceberg for this
Yeah, we
kind of
only have 3 hours
information. But
here, so we did the best we could do. But we got
yeah,
about 5 minutes, so maybe we can talk a little about what you want to talk about.
yes, thank you so much. For me, I think the most important thing is to help people understand that the more we learn how to activate and understand how to work the technology of the human body, it allows us to choose where our consciousness will incarnate beyond this physical three-dimensional reality. And so that's really what I focus on doing. And as I teach DNA deprogramming, that's kind of like my main focus. So, I speak a lot on the topic of the hybridization program, and I believe that my contact with ETs, with extraterrestrial life forms, is a way for us to really understand our value and our function as humans in this multiverse, basically. So that's the most important thing that I would like to end with, really. And if anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can reach me at my website. And I am so grateful and thankful to have been invited onto the show, Brooks and
And
Suzanne.
what
Thank
is
you
the
so much, and I
website?
cannot wait to meet you as well.
What's the website?
Yes, my website is GeraldineOrozco.com, and also hybridmother.com. I founded international support group for hybrid parents. So anybody that is experiencing the phenomena or has had contact and is communicating with their hybrid children and wants to understand more about the process can come and share their story on this platform with me.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the ETs. What systems, what ETs are here? Where do they come from? Are they physically here, or are they just communicating with people here?
Yeah, well, I believe that as a human race, it is my understanding that we are actually an evolved form that originated in an original bloodline, which is, let's say, a draconian bloodline within this matrix multiverse. And I feel that all of the races that have evolved from that original bloodline have then kind of organized themselves in a spectrum of frequency, just like the humans. So the humans are a product of multiple generations of genetic alteration. Okay, so it is my understanding that humans are basically a hybrid race. We are indeed a hybrid race, and that's why we hold so much information within our DNA, within our genes, which are connecting us to all of these races. So I do believe that they are among us and even within us, and we communicate and work, and we are sharing this multiverse with them as well. And there's so much more to talk about that, but just to shorten it, that would be a way to express that.
That is, I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, it doesn't take much of an observer to look up in the skies and see things that aren't from around here. As a physicist, I wonder, how do they get here? Because I know you can't jump into an aluminum can and just fly across the galaxy from one star system to another. You got to kind of slip underneath space in between dimensions to travel those kinds of distances, which opens the possibilities to things that we see the evidence of, but we don't really know how it could be possible. And so many of us, even my colleagues, deny that they could exist simply because they don't believe that that kind of mode of travel is possible. Can you, Well, we're going to take a quick break. If you want to, you can hang around the next segment. If not, I would totally understand. What do you want to do?
Oh, I actually, I'm so sorry. I do have an appointment, but I'm happy to wrap up this comment absolutely when we return.
Okay, we'll be back in about 3 minutes. We'll wrap it up with Geraldine, and then she's going to go take care of her appointment, and we're going to finish things here at X Squared Radio. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away, you YouTubers. Be right back after this.